So first and foremost, a couple of bits of thanks. Thank you to our partner who's helping sponsor the event here tonight, Comcast. Appreciate you guys, Kevin and team, Sam. Thank you for that, and thank you everybody for making a little bit of time to come out on a Thursday. I talked to the team when they sent the invites out, and I personally don't know why it didn't say free beer before cybersecurity, but enjoy a couple of beers. If you haven't, grab some food. It's in the back. It's warm, tasty. For those of you who haven't had it yet, make sure you get yourself fed and enjoy a couple of pints. We're gonna have a fun conversation, and by fun, as always, with anything cybersecurity, I mean terrifying conversation about cybersecurity and some of the changes we're seeing. I'm going to have these guys introduce themselves in just a moment here. I think many of you probably, at least in the Eclipse universe, know Kirk well. Mike here are going to take us on a little bit of a ride. As I'm looking around the room with a lot of folks I know if you want to make this as interactive as humanly possible, there's a lot of really good practitioners of all things IT and cybersecurity in this room. Chime in, ask questions, heckle, get in the mix here if you like. We will leave a little room at the end as well. But there's a hell of a lot of IT firepower in the room here, so don't be afraid to show off in front of your peers a little bit. And again, when we're finished here, make sure you're talking to one another, networking, getting to know each other. Those of you who haven't met, it's some of my favorite people are sitting in this room right now, and also Matt is there from the team. So we'll get into the topic here. We're going to talk about some of the changes in the landscape, and again, a lot of practitioners in the room. Some of this may not be news, but you can't do a cybersecurity thing without having a bunch of horrifying stats to start. So first, I'll start with the good news. All of those posters you guys put up in the lunchroom worked. Telling people don't click on links and don't be an idiot. Remember those posters we were all putting up for 20 years? They kind of worked. And as a result, the bad guys have had to take on some new approach vectors. And so in the last year, the number one way that people are getting into environments now is exploit. So the bad news is, how do you guys fix unknown exploits on gear that you have in your environment and software you have in your environment? A lot of practitioners, like I said, I'm waiting for that answer. Who's got the answer? Drez, you're retired. Do you still know?
I'm retired.
But yeah, Tim knows.
You run a VMS.
Yeah, after the problem has already been identified and you're already, in all likelihood, compromised and great potential, already in a little bit of danger. So. We're going to talk a little bit today about what that means, that the stuff you're putting in your environment, some of it ostensibly to protect you, your security posture, may be the problem at times, and what to do about some of that, and what other layers to add in to make sure we're seeing it as quickly as possible, remediating as quickly as possible. The social engineering thing is alive and well. We're still doing phishing attacks. It still makes up about half as many compromises as an exploit of a piece of equipment or software. But we're seeing this change, and this is the fun and interesting development here. Ransomware as a service, and if you've spent time in this rabbit hole, it's fascinating. It is as well run as many enterprise companies. The people who are best at exploiting things like, I'm doing moderating duty here, so what did I do? I looked up bad stuff that happened this week. Google Chrome, compromised. Microsoft SharePoint, compromised. Fortinet had a compromise. All announced just this week. Nobody's safe. You probably have one or two or maybe all of those things in your environment and have had to react quickly to deal with them. So the people who are sophisticated enough to do these exploits are actually, they're running recruiting campaigns. They're doing marketing, and they're saying, "Hey Matt, come join us, and we'll give you the tools. We'll show you where the exploit is. You go ransom these guys, and we'll just take a cut. We'll take sort of a finder's fee for giving you the exploit in the path." This has become something greater than a sophisticated criminal enterprise at this point. So these guys are going to jump in today and talk quite a bit about this sort of ransomware as a service. Other fun things for the practitioners again in the room. The speed that things are happening. Some of this, and we'll touch on some of this today, we'll do with AI tools and speed of compute and all of the other things that are happening. But time for the exploit to happen. 2018 was a 63-day average. We're down to 5. They get in and they hit it hard and they hit it fast. And the trend shows that it's going to get pretty close to inside of a day in many cases for that exploit to happen and to hit. Mean time to patch for an enterprise that has been alerted that you have a critical security compromise. I know everybody in this room, it's immediately stop what you're doing and patch. You never wait. But the mean time out in the world, 60 to 150 days is that end day where they have time to go hit you while you are waiting to go patch your stuff. So
Tell their friends.
yeah, and tell their friends and sell that info and put it on the dark web. Last sort of fun thing that these guys are using the actual World Wide Web, the one everybody's on all day long, and they're extorting people. We're going to show you data. My favorite story, and Matt and I were talking about this, was a group that compromised a company that was publicly traded and then reported them to the SEC for not disclosing it. So these guys are absolutely screwing with the people that they're causing trouble. There's a lot of that exploitation going on, blackmail. We're going to go tell the world that all your client data, your PHI, if you're a health organization, has been compromised. So with that, let me tee up Mike and Kirk here to tell you a little bit about themselves. Kirk, if you want to get started and say hi, and Mike as well, and then we'll jump into the content here.
Yeah, perfect. Hey everybody, Kirk Armstrong with Eclipse, Chief Technology Officer. Been with Eclipse for 12 years and done a variety of things for a bunch of you in the room, but really looking forward to talking about it.
Hi, thanks for having us. Mike Murphy, I'm a Director of Solution Architecture with Comcast Business, and my primary job is helping customers with what our solutions are, as well as helping them in the security space. We have a tremendous amount of experience in the security space. We also have some folks that are very deep in the security space. We've got one person that has a doctorate in cybersecurity, and a few other folks. So we're really ramping up our security posture.
Another reason I like an org like this speaking very incredibly about the topic, I was talking with Kevin earlier, they've got a security report that is coming out here shortly. Comcast, just on their own network, their global footprint, their network, had 29 billion attacks identified last year. 29 billion. I can't do the math on that, Trez. So it's a lot of attacks. That's a lot. That means probably every minute, every hour of every day, they are being bombarded by state actors and the guy in the basement and everybody in between. And so with that, Kirk, I'm going to sort of kick to you. This ransomware as a service topic, which is, like I said, an absolutely fascinating rabbit hole to go down. How is this different than a traditional hacker? We're way past, by the way, the guy in his mother's basement. But what's the difference to you, like from a framing out perspective for everybody here?
This is the logical, I think, enterpriseization of it as you're looking at ransomware as a service. So the early days of ransomware, you could even go back and reverse engineer where they would put the local deployable would have the decryption key with it. So you would go in and say, oh, hey, we can reverse engineer this. Now you're starting to go all the way to where you are on the dark web, and so they're aggregating information from levels of success, providing reports back to other individuals and groups and saying, hey, this particular strain of ransomware, this is really effective. And oh yeah, by the way, here's your encryption key. It's like literally as you're going down a software product page, it is comparing different levels of it, support tiers, and oh yeah, by the way, hey, this one's $9.95 a month. This one, hey, we'll take 20% of whatever you get out of the organization. And then, oh yeah, hey, here's some add-on features towards the bottom. It is truly going towards anything that you would want to see as like an enterprise IT person saying, hey, I'm looking at a software package. What are the things that are important to me in this? They are bringing that forward into this. It is really, I would say, made it substantially less technical for people to get into an organization. So you used to have to know what you were doing. There was tech support, there was customer support. They are setting up their own payment platforms for this. So you don't even need to expose your own wallet to it. the organization says, hey, don't worry. When they call us, and we tell them the place to do it or where to place the payment. There's also how the polymorphic attacks are occurring is, hey, these organizations have the attack shifting just slightly, so the signature changes, so it goes against everything that you're already seeing. So this is big business. I mean, it's, what was the latest Gartner stat? I think it was like 58% of people who get into a situation with ransomware end up paying it, and the dollar value on each individual transaction, I think, is trending upward somewhere around $700,000 as of last year. So, and even within those categories, there's still, I think it was 4% who still didn't even get their money, their data back after they had paid the ransom. So there's no guarantee that you do any of this. What I'll also say is, like, there's terms of use on these pages where it's like, hey, actually, we're based in the Netherlands, but hey, anyone who's a former Russian bloc country, we're not going to allow you to attack them, and if you do, we're going to crypto lock anything that you have. So this is super sophisticated things. These are, it is a true enterprise SaaS platform, and yeah, the dark web is full of, hey, here's who's having success right now today on this.
Yeah, just to jump on what he said, the level of sophistication that we see since 2022 COVID time period till now is exponentially gone up. We estimate probably about 80 to 120 times, just in our opinion. Okay, because what we see is bad actors will get in there, they may do some ransomware, but they may not even activate it, right? They may find flaws or something else, do something, share it with other folks, let it kind of inebriate, so to speak, for 30 days, and then we will see all these surface activity things going on. So while that's going on, during that 30-day period, the sophistication, again, is just exponential, right? And we're seeing things that you just can't even dream of. I mean, it's really absolutely phenomenal. To go back to one of the things he said, right, the Fortinet exploits that came out, not to get too deep into the weeds, some of that stuff had been out there for 90 to 100, 120 days before the vendor will actually come out and start talking about it. So again, when you start talking about sophistication, ransomware, you really have to start looking at XDR, MDR, and some other layers of sophistication to try to counteract that. We like to say it's time to go offensive, right? I mean, we've been defensive for a long time. It's really time to get offensive.
It just still astounds me, like, when, again, you dig into this, just in the last, again, COVID seemed to really accelerate a lot of things here. And in 2020 and 23, 300% increase in data loss sites where these guys are posting stuff, dark web, and sometimes, I guess the opposite, the light web, or the clear web, yeah. And so, when you think about some of these guys are so professionalized, they have portals where you can log in and see how much ransom you've been paid and what your cut is. Like you were affiliate marketing, like you're selling friggin' Mary Kay or something, right? Like this is the level of sophistication, and the law enforcement agencies around the country don't have the tools and sophistication to keep up. The Comcasts of the world have to keep up because their network is, along with a few other big players who we all know by name, the backbone of the global economy at this point. We can't have big chunks of the internet disappearing for days at a time. So, with that push button payment, and again, they can make it so somebody who is not a hacker, doesn't know a lick of code, can go in and subscribe to becoming an attacker, and potentially getting themselves arrested, etc. But how do we even deal with this in this push button payment world? Do you pay and hope it goes away? Let's start talking about remediation, what to do. Is it as simple as give them their Bitcoin and hope for the best, or is there something more we ought to be doing, Mike?
Well, in my opinion, again, it comes down to being offensive. So if you're offensive, you really understand what did they take from that, right? Like you were talking about, if you go into some of the websites now, if you've looked at them, once they've attacked your environment, they'll actually show you the files that they've taken from you in some cases. And they'll say, hey, here's all the files I have from you, here's what the extensions are, here's the file sizes, right? Are these, things that you want back, right? Are you going to pay the ransom? So the first thing you have to do is really try to understand what's happening. Do I have backups for it? Do I not have backups? How critical is this to my environment? And if you're behind the curve and you're really in the defensive mode, you're already backpedaling because you don't understand what you've lost. You don't understand what the criticality of that is. And it's really going to take you some time to dig into it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, basic IT it's basic IT hygiene, but it's also like, hey, moving from traditional backups to immutable backups is a base requirement because what they're attacking on the way in, I think it's 97% of organizations, is they're going after the backups first. The first thing that they want to make you feel is pain, and you do not have an alternate. So they're really reverse engineering the way that you're going to behave. So, but they're also looking for maximized impact. So to the exploit conversation, David just listed off 3 giant technology organizations that a bunch of you would have deployed in your environment. If you go into, from an exploit perspective, there's a small company called VMware that a bunch of you are use. They're in the top 10. There's Microsoft Clear Text Passwords and things like that. These are really the parts of the exploit that become very difficult in saying, hey, have I actually gone through and made it so that my environment is recoverable? How much of it is? And I think it's like second or third level exploits. It's like, hey, Dave brings up the SEC, but you're seeing personal threats on people's lives, and they're saying, hey, we're going to reach out to the executive and threaten their family if they don't begin paying attention. So how are you going to react, and how do you make sure that you don't get into that position? Really makes it so like, hey, what does limiting access mean? How do I make sure that like in not going down identity and access, but really starting to understand what are my things that are interconnected and how far can somebody get without trying to bolt everything down? Because you've all been in the position where everything was so locked down and siloed for so long that now we're in like no one here has been in a sales conversation with any software provider that didn't say API. I know all of you would never have connected everything because that's what the business wanted, but everything is so hyper connected now that how are you going back and reviewing what are the things that are connected, and when is the last time you validated what are the APIs that we're authorizing, and when do I need to take down the connectivity between platforms? Yeah,
to jump on that just for a second, ServiceNow is a big one, right? And many organizations have just really opened up ServiceNow. Anywhere and everywhere, I've got APIs, it plugs into this, it plugs into that, into my logging system, into my help desk system, into XYZ. So we're starting to see that as well.
Got a question from Mark in the back. Were you stretching?
I was stretching.
Peppering stats throughout here. $1 billion paid in 23 in ransom that we're aware of, which means the number's probably quite a bit bigger. And it could be a little disheartening, particularly this conversation around, well, shoot, we're counting on the people we bought stuff from to keep their house in order. What can people in the room be doing, besides, building the layered posture we always talk about, building your onion and making sure you have an alarm system and a police force and locks on the house. Every cybersecurity analogy you can use. Tell me what some practical tips are, Mike, from a Comcast perspective of, to a degree, we are counting on others that we have partnered with to make sure that they're keeping their stuff secure, letting us know as quick as humanly possible, which sadly they don't always. So what can we be doing? How do we catch things as soon as humanly possible? What are some actionable, good steps to be taking right now?
Sure, absolutely. There's quite a few that are, to me, big ticket items, but very simple. I just wanted to back up one step. If you're not familiar with this, the Treasury Department now has 2 organizations internally. So when you talk about ransomware, so what we're seeing now is some people are paying this ransomware, but the Treasury Department is watching this because some of those folks are foreign actors. So if you potentially do that, right, you could be breaking some federal rules, which is a whole other ballgame. I don't know if you've heard of this, or if you hadn't heard of this, I strongly encourage that you read up on it. It may not affect you now, but at some point in the next couple of years it may. So again, if you're talking to a bad actor, even talking to them or potentially offering to pay them off for this ransomware, the Treasury Department is now watching those things, watching transactions, watching money moving around. So it's sophistication is just
No, but like the cyber insurance firms, like all of them, and by the way, everyone in this room has had an issue getting cyber insurance renewal done because they're harder and harder to get. They're harder and harder to get renegotiated, and even harder and harder to get paid out on when you have an incident. The early days, and this is, I don't know, let's call it like 8-9 years ago, would be if we have a cyber event, hey, we will have the insurance paid for it, and it is our default standard that this is where we're going. That cash register is running out of money quickly, and you're starting to go, well, how am I starting to do this? And it's really, who really needs access to what? How am I avoiding credentials that aren't even admin credentials from getting elevated once the bad actor is in a particular system? And hey, how am I also avoiding, like, hey, systems or things that have known security vulnerabilities, like, how fast am I patching them? And like, nobody, like 150 days on any of this. So say it took, I don't know, pick on Fortnite, say it took them 90 days to tell anybody about it. You're really almost a year back from when people could have had access to your systems. That is a exceeding disadvantage, and they're all looking at what do you have deployed. You're on known customer lists. You're on known buyer of this particular platform. Hey, if I have a Rockwell deployment in my IoT, or hey, what is running my manufacturing floor? These are the things where how am I limiting total access to these devices without limiting the critical capacities of the organization? Defense in depth is great, patching, but it's still patching. It's number one thing to do is patch your systems as much as you possibly can. Past that, defense in depth and automating your response, allowing these systems that you put in place to trust and actually operate fully. That's a hard thing to do, and it only takes so much of your workload off, but at least it allows you to focus on what is the next piece of this, because 24/7 eyes on glass is an ideal state for everybody, but I want to say it was like 73% of deployment or executions of exploits have been after hours. So, hey, you're driving home at 6:30 at night from the Guinness Brewery. Okay, hey, they enacted. What happens then? Like, you have to make it so that you are more than the sum of your parts.
Sorry, going back to your original question. One of the things that we did is we looked at certain things that are happening in ransomware and things. As an example, I mean, it's just our opinion, right? 55 to 58% of some things that we saw go on could have been mitigated with two-factor authentication. Just being that simple.
2FA.
2FA, right, two-factor authentication. So just to start there, right, I mean, there's very, very, very simple things organizations should be doing.
Yep.
They're just not doing. I mean, yes, there's a lot of other things. You can get as sophisticated and spend as much money as you want, but really unboiling the ocean, we see a lot of customers just aren't doing the basic things. Yeah.
Backups, patching.
Two-factor authentication.
And actually running through a DR test, seeing what actually happens when you have to fail over.
Here's your comment.
No, please.
So, you find it interesting. You're absolutely right. So many attacks come from compromised people they are using modern authentication techniques,
right.
Two-factor authentication. But Kurt, you touched on it a moment earlier. I mean, the integrations you have with these SaaS providers, 2FA doesn't exist when you go service to service, right? So the bigger issue is how you present the Microsoft token. That is now an exploit that I am terribly afraid of. And so few SaaS providers actually have mechanisms in place to actually, we're dealing with the SaaS provider who wants to use the service-to-service authentication to basic authentication. That's it. We walk away from those service providers. But today we're asking for things like, we offer token binding, we have some sort of whitelisting, X500, and so few SaaS providers actually protect the API interface to a level that makes sense. So we're in a situation where we're find ourselves having to walk away from SaaS providers because they just don't get the level of sophistication needed to their so actually, my question is, because binding protocols not get ratified. Do you see somebody, you see that emerging as actually a good solution?
Something has to solve that problem. I don't know what, but something. And here's the damnable thing. This never happens to anybody in this room, I'm sure. Your business is like, I don't care, I want the thing, I need that thing to do my job. And so what's happening in a lot of organizations is they're not putting up that wall and saying, no, you can't have it. They're taking known risk on without that second factor authentication, app to app, API to API, because the business is driving it. Guess what? Your marketing team doesn't want to hear it. They're like, you figure it out. You're the cyber guy. You figure it out. You keep it safe. You keep it secure. So, globally, the problem does have to be solved for. I don't know if you have eyes on that at the level of stuff Comcast does, but this is not a unique problem. It's a problem across a lot of different platforms, and I don't know what the exact right answer is going to be. Actually, it leads me into a topic, because maybe it's a thing where I believe pretty much a year or two from now, if we're having the same discussion, we'll all be sitting back like spectators watching the AIs battle it out. AI offense and AI defense. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
From an API set a good platform monitoring environment kind of safeguards you from those kinds of things?
Maybe. And I would make an argument here, Mark, too, for the thing Kirk said a few minutes ago. Most people don't have the heft to build their own, but outsource 24/7 SOC, eyes on glass, ingesting your logs, watching for abnormal behavior, using AI and algorithm to look for suspicious stuff happening on the network. I would advocate for that.
I think the disruption in the flow of data that users will be impacted by that you not immediately, but you'll be drawn to that. Especially, I work hard on this.
Yeah.
If there's any disruption, I know right away.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of monitoring that we do. We have kind of a SaaS version mentality. A lot of our new modern systems, they are all cloud.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just looking at your comment. What we are demanding out of our SaaS providers, not all providers right now, but demanding citizen integration. So they have a SIM, we want it to outpulse activity within our tenant back to our SIM so we can be able to submit and recognizing when there's anomalous traffic occurring on our tenant, against our tenant in their solution, so that so people like us can see when things are happening, we can be able to get the remedies. That's a nice, not a sole providers provide that. We're driving some of our business. We're demanding it now of our other partners. We're scrambling trying to figure out how to provide us citizen intrusion.
Not to get too technical, but what we're seeing on the API front is everybody's got their own ideas of what they should do for API security, right? I mean, ServiceNow's got their own idea, AWS has their own idea, Azure has their own ideas now. Actually, Cisco's come out with a couple of great ideas, but nobody's coming to the table to do the same thing. That's why I see it. I think that's kind of what we see as a problem. Going back to your point, right? What we see is when somebody exposes an API, right? They're not going to try to disrupt it. They're just going to try to ingest as much info as they can. Hey, this is open. This is what's going on. Here's what's on the other end of that. Oh, it's an API to get me to ServiceNow, but more importantly, here's what it's sitting on top of, right? There's a bunch of stuff under the hoods I might be able to do or expose. Can I get to it from somewhere else so I'm not exposing this traffic that's already there? And you're never going to know what's going on.
There's SSL out there too.
Right, yeah. But nobody's coming to the table to do the same thing. That's the problem.
Except for quantum computing just broke SSL. Quantum computing just broke SSL. China just used D-Wave.
Told you there's going to be all kinds of good news today.
Another trick.
But Tim, Mark, at this point, like we're talking about this greater level of visibility across organizations and actually sharing metadata between organizations. that's where we have to start playing as a community in a more seamless format. And we were talking before this, and you may want to get into this. It's like Palo Alto and Cisco and Fortinet and Checkpoint are starting to come to the Comcast of the world, the AT&Ts of the world, the Verizons of the world, and saying, hey, we need to be looking at this at a greater scale. So, Tim, your perfect point in this is like, hey, I need to be looking at both sides of the API connection. And I need, because I don't own both sides in all instances. And the more SaaS providers you have, the more we're having to agree with that. You're having to make a security-based decision or a functionality-based decision. We don't see a ton of organizations at this point making a security-only version of a decision for a SaaS platform for the end users. I think there is some potential trend for that as we get more feature parity across different SaaS platforms where, hey, something may actually fail security, and hey, you may move security up in your evaluation process to say, hey, we need you to prove out that you're going to give us this level of data, otherwise you're removed from consideration. That's really early and really important, but there's a risk because we've all been to the siloed version where the business is saying, I need the thing, I can't believe you're saying no to the thing. So we have to take our lessons that we learned from that era and apply them forward and say, how do we really make it so the business can get this done at 80 to 90% effectiveness versus maybe 95 with whatever the widget was that they were so in love with, but then lost interest in it 5 minutes later, I think is usually how it works. So.
Yeah, but going to your point, I mean, we talked Palo, Cisco, all those folks. To us, not being biased, but I'm kind of biased a little bit, Palo is really doing it the right way, right? They're looking at zero day. They're looking at what's going on globally. They're talking to other providers. They're sharing their information. They're getting much more reluctant to share that information because if someone, say I'm a Fortinet, and something's been going on for 90 days, and I'm not exposing that, and I don't let a hospital chain know that, what legal obligations do I have?
Yep.
So, I mean, things are really kind of crazy out there. But I think we're going to start seeing more and more people going to start working together more because they just have to. And how that's going to be great for us as the end consumer is, hey, Cisco and Palo Alto see this going on out here in this area offensively versus defensively. And oh, by the way, we're going to start letting other people know and other providers know that provide security products, right, in a much quicker fashion. I mean, we're not going to get there anytime soon, but hopefully I think we're going to start seeing it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming many of you in the room, like myself, are getting a daily LinkedIn invite from somebody who's an AI security, well-funded startup who's going to solve every problem you have. I get that. I get about 1 or 2 of those a day of we've got to talk. So, again, people are developing new ideas, new things, or new threats coming every day. I'm going to open us up for a couple of questions here. Thank you guys first. I think we should actually wait until everyone's got a few more pops in them. Because neither one of you guys said zero trust, which should always get like a room full of eyes. You guys absolutely have to. Just pull the plug on everything. Don't let anybody use anything. You're safe and secure. So thank you for not bringing up zero trust because that always lands like a lead balloon in a room full of people who have to actually let their users do their jobs. So I want to open us up to questions. Tom Dress.
All right, well, in theory, like you said, I'm supposed to be retired. Retired on Groundhog Day, but I'm a volunteer, right? Business and technology, cybersecurity, privacy, whatever it might be. So I came here for 2 things. Well, 3 things if you count the free beer. And I'm just, in the last 9 months since I've been retired, and I pick up bits and pieces. I was curious to learn what the current threat environment is out there. Second, what are the best practices and what I really see being offered to every organization of every size these days, even the tiniest of organizations, is a 24/7, 365 SOC. And then also, you already touched on it, Kirk, when it's the fan. What's the current picture of the cyber liability insurance market? And you kind of already touched on that. It's oversaturated. So if I get to leave with some new information on those 3 fronts, I'm out. And some beer.
Thanks, Tom. Questions, comments? Free beer. Tom nailed the number 1 topic of the day.
Actually, I wanted to touch on cybersecurity. we have a theory going on right now, just us internally. I mean, it's not anything great. Our opinion is we think we're going to see it completely go away in the next 2 or 3 years.
Gonna see a what?
See it completely go away in the next 2 or 3 years. There's too much litigation. There's too much going on globally. You know, if I'm an insurer, how do I know if I can pay or not pay?
It's like the hurricane guys leaving Florida, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
to
the
me,
same thing. Yeah.
That's kind of how we see the landscape. It's not there yet, but it kind of feels like that to us. And again, like I talked about the Treasury Department, you know, not many are aware of it, but you got the Treasury Department, a couple other entities in some other places in the UK, Germany, right? They're doing that same thing. They're like, hey, we don't want to pay these actors. We should not be paying them. And they're going back to the original organization going, do you have your stuff together, right? Did you do a backup? Can you get this stuff back? We'll help you with that. We don't want you to pay them. And oh, by the way, if you do pay them, you're going to get fines and penalties from us because we feel they're a bad actor, and so on and so on. So,
And you're going to get dropped from your insurance as well.
yeah, you may get dropped from other insurance providers just because of things that are going on.
How does that play out? I mean, again, you don't want to pay any state actor foreign adversary deal with CY, it's the same idea, trying to prevent an adversary from getting information, trying to prevent an adversary from getting cash. But I mean, am I supposed to rely on this department of the Treasury, which you said they're so far behind the curve?
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do? And I mean, if it's getting to the point where there's something after the back of the 14 years, and I'm hoping that the system that we have, which was implemented by an ex-employee of Walsh, helped us put in place. So that you hope that they are encrypted, that we can come back with them.
Yeah.
But if they know some back door that they can get in and explain, am I supposed to trust the government? The Social Security Administration is just admitted that everybody's Social Security number is known to everyone.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you,
I mean,
yeah, so far what the Treasury Department has said, and I've seen a couple of them firsthand, do you have your house together? That was one of the conversations. They're like, don't rely on us.
Do you have your house left?
Your house together, so to speak. I mean, that wasn't the exact verbiage, I'm not going to use it, but
what if my answer is no?
if your answer is no, then that means you should have had it together, you should have known what's going on, you should have had a security posture. I'm just telling you what they're
We're talking about like, all organizations, not just
Correct.
we assume that people that are a little bit ahead of the average company.
Yeah.
But if you're talking to your company, they're going after small security.
Yes.
So you hit that firm or they assume that they're bankers.
Yeah.
So what's the Treasury Department? Other than fine me when I actually pay these guys. So now I'm getting screwed twice.
Nothing. That's what they're going to do. They're going to come after you potentially. What we've seen so far is just warnings. We haven't seen them actually come and say, hey, we're going to impose fines and penalties. But they've come back with warnings. Let me give you an example. Say you're a gas station. This is a crazy example that we ran into. Say you're a gas station chain. You've got 5 gas stations. These gas stations are in big metro areas, right? Some folks went in and put some ransomware, but it's not ransomware like you think. It's ransomware that shuts these pumps down or takes pennies on the dollar within your pumps, unless you do something and help them, right? Well, the government's like, you should have done something. You should have had a security posture. You're the end customer. You're like, well, what?
Gas station.
Yeah, I'm like, and a smaller one at that. Right? They're not making a ton of money.
Shell's technology is not mine.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it could be. Could be anyone.
It was like stealing a fraction of a penny off of every gas transaction. I would see what the guys from Office Space are up to. It might be them again.
Well, it's not even taking it; it's them losing it as an entity.
So I want to wrap us up with this by thanking these two who are going to be here in the room to have their brains picked. But I'm going to say again, the firepower in the room. I pick on the recently retired Tom Drez. I've known Tom a really long time. I don't know anybody who knows about HIPAA regulations as much as this guy sitting right here, including like people who are CIOs for hospitals and insurance companies. He lived in that world for a very long time. He knows personally identifiable information, health information. If that's a topic anybody needs to scratch at, you have an absolute expert sitting in the room. You have expertise all throughout the room. There's nobody in here, to your point, Manus, who isn't probably a little bit above those 5 gas stations. So please share, be open, enjoy a tasty beverage or two, and thank you guys so much for all coming out today, and thank you too for the excellent discussion today. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks.